Sebastian Stan.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome.
Good,
We're
how you
on
doing?
the air, man. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thanks
I'm
for
good.
coming in.
My pleasure.
You know what's amazing? We were talking about you yesterday and how you were coming in,
Oh God.
and and I knew you as Bucky, but I also knew you as Jeff Gillooly, and
Oh,
I didn't put two and two together until that moment that you were the same person, which I think
Well,
is a great compliment, right?
No, for sure. I mean, Josh Brolin said the same thing to me, and we'd been doing some interviews together for the film, and finally, I guess he figured that out and sent me a nice email about. Of course, it's the best compliment.
That's great. He's hanging out
the
with
best
you,
thing
and
we
he's
could-
like, "Oh my God,
It was you.
yeah."
So when
Yeah.
you're playing Gillooly, do you want to meet? Are you the guy who wants to meet someone first?
I think you have to in some weird way. I mean, regardless what you hear of the people, who you're meeting. I mean, and certainly there was also because there was all I could find online was just unfortunately a very kind of dark description, of this guy, and I just in the movie we needed to see him in various different ways, and so it was like if you don't, then it's weird.
So how you contacted him? And what did you say? Look, I'm playing you, and I would like to.
He had been really in touch with the writer. I mean, the writer basically, Steven Rogers, went and interviewed Tanya and then Jeff separately and got 3 hours worth of information out of both of them, and then wrote the script with their consent. So he had been in touch with Jeff, and then they said, "You want to meet him?" And I said, "Sure." So I went to Portland, Oregon. I went to where they're from, and I went everywhere around, and then I finally tracked him down, and we got dinner, and then I just tried to get as much info as I could.
Was he? No, sorry, sir. Was he what you expected, or were you like, oh, okay, this is not the guy I thought he was?
No, I mean he was. I tried really hard not to walk in there with expectations. I mean it's hard to do that, especially when you're researching somebody. But yeah, I mean in some ways it was interesting because everybody has a story. We all have a story of what happened, and sometimes that's your story, or so he has his, and I think for me it was much more just being curious with who he was growing up, what the origin, how they met, what it was like at the beginning. I mean, I knew all about the craziness, but it was more about what are his mannerisms. I mean, I couldn't find a picture of the guy smiling. Even just that was wanting to just kind of get an idea for.
No smiling. He must listen to this show.
No, I'm sure he.
When you're sitting down though, with somebody, and you're the actor that's going to play them, that they're going to put their best face forward. That they're going to wear what you want them. They are going to, if they're smart, show you the person that they want to be on screen.
Listen, I mean, I agree.
You need a pretty serious bullshit detector.
I think I would agree with you. That would be the sort of approach I would assume. But the first thing he said to me was listen, why would they ever want to make a movie about this? About what happened, because it shouldn't be celebrated. It shouldn't, it's I don't want to, we shouldn't have attention brought to it. And I said, look, I mean, I'm not the writer, but you spoke to the writer and he wrote a pretty great script. And it's also about her, really.
Yeah.
It's her life story and getting a different point of view of her and what happened that, she didn't get a chance so much when it happened. And, he was very supportive of that. So,
Are they friends at all, or no?
A certain kind of manipulation, maybe.
Are they still in touch or no?
I don't
real
believe
life?
so. No, I don't believe.
No, I said in real life. We're also debating the actors. Stupid question.
In the movie, do you think that they're still friends?
Yeah, but I'm wondering, did they ever reconnect? I mean, they do have this bond.
But I guess as an actor, you have this benefit of you don't have to have those answers, right? You don't have to say whether this guy is a good guy or a bad guy. You have to just portray him as he would perceive himself, not the way you perceive him, right? Does
No,
that make
I
sense?
agree. I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to get. Well, you always have sort of an objective point of view of it, but you also have to kind of leave the judgments at the door. You're right, to some extent, you have to, or else you're never going to be able to get anywhere believable.
Right.
You just won't be believable, especially if you have a radar of self-criticism, which is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Then I feel like if I'm bullshitting. But I didn't have it. It's not my choice. Everything you saw in the movie was in the script. The way all the funny business and then all the hard stuff, and also moments where it showed like they did have a connection. So I just have to follow that as it's like a GPS for me, basically.
Is getting involved with the Marvel universe at this point, is it like the greatest gig in Hollywood? Because it just seems like every time we talk to actors, they talk about how like the benefit of being on a series, for example, is consistency. You get this.
Well, I 100% would say I probably I'm not sure if I would have gotten I, Tonya had it not been for Marvel.
Right.
In one way or another, I mean, my life certainly has changed since the first movie I was in, it was in 2010, and I always give credit to that, because I think in terms of exposure, in terms of what it taught me about kind of what I want, the relationships, the directors, like it influenced everything on a huge scale. So yeah, absolutely. You're always feeling that it's a privilege in a way, and especially because you know that there's so much care from the top down about the final product, what you're getting, and I think everybody pays attention to what fans want, what they respond to, what they don't, like they're always, I mean, look, they've consistently made great movies one after the other. And if you could argue, and people try that there's fatigue, or you've seen this thing or whatever, but they're always making a new take on it. They're always kind of keeping you entertained in a different way, or giving you a different sort of outlook. So, and they're doing it tonally in different ways with different stories. So it's kind of epic and really difficult.
Yeah.
You really have a 9-picture deal?
I signed something about 10 years ago, but that doesn't really mean much.
Because I'm saying, what is the moment when your agent comes and goes, all right, they want you for 9?
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Yeah, here's what it's like. One thing
You usually don't hear that.
You
It's
know,
usually one or two.
actors want to get one blockbuster, right? Like,
Yeah.
I want one summer blockbuster. Like, okay, we have 9 blockbusters for you to star in.
Listen, I mean, here's the thing. At the end of the day, those things, like words or whatever, that don't mean that much, because the truth is, I feel like the journey has always been fly by the seat of your pants. It's like there's always a hope, there's always a goal, in the sense of like, yeah, listen, like we would love to do this one day, like that's how it was always presented to me, when I was 2010, I mean, I don't even know, I was like, what, 25, 26, I can't even remember. But anyway, like, and I'm sitting there going like, well, this all sounds fantastic. But again, so much has to go right in order for all that to come to fruition. I mean, like at any point in time, like the whole deal could just
because they might not make any more. They might, okay.
Well,
One
you
of those
never know.
movies
Like,
like Bombs or something,
But
they're
I'm
like,
just
let's rethink.
I don't think it's that so much as I would say, like early on when that was a discussion about the future, like everybody was hopeful that people would respond in the way that they have, but no one was banking on it. I mean, it's...
Do you have conversations in terms of storyline about like, and I'm not asking for spoilers, obviously, but like,
Right.
do they go like, okay, here's the vision for this film, here's the long-term vision of where the pieces fit together? Like, do you have some kind of idea in your head of what Disney and Marvel
I think we hear much more the vision of the film than the long-term vision.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's always much more about the vision of the film than anything else. I mean, like for me, I've always looked at the comic books and tried to filter in certain aspects of my character and from what I've learned there in terms of, so that one day maybe when you do look back, you start to go, oh, you know what? Like, it's interesting. Like, I just picked something up that like he was doing early on. Like, I feel like that would be cool to do, but again, it is a lot of on a need to know basis,
Right, and you auditioned,
which is smart.
You auditioned for Captain America?
I did, because they weren't having auditions for Bucky Barnes at the time. All they were trying to do is just cast Captain America and then go forward. And I just happened to, so they were only seeing people for that, and I happened to go in for that. And then they were like, oh, you know what? Maybe he could be right for that role. We didn't think about that. And
How'd the audition go? Like, did it go good where you're like, I think I got this, or you're like, oh, there's no fucking way?
No, it was going well, and the reason I say that is because I'd gone in, I think, a few times. Like, I went in one time in LA, then I got a movie in Germany, and then I left. And then I made another tape from there, and I sent a tape in. They liked that. They had me do it another way. Then I had to fly to LA, and I went in again, and I auditioned again. And then they wanted to screen test me. So I kind of auditioned for Captain America at least probably 4 times before I even got to that point. So, you're going back in again and again. You're like, oh, like maybe
it's
this
gonna happen.
could work.
And I guess they have to be that kind of careful about who they cast, because the idea is we're going to do like 10 movies, hopefully if everything goes according to plan, and we don't want to be switching characters.
No, I know, but the whole
right?
time I was getting, it was exciting, but I kept saying to myself, I'm like, but I was born in Romania. Just hopefully, I don't know. Does that matter? I mean, I'm just saying.
You said they wanted you to do it another way. You said they had you do it a different way. What did they ask you to switch?
Well, first of all, I didn't grow up with the comic books, so I had no preconceived idea. I had no knowledge of what was going on. I mean, I even, I'd heard Captain America, but I didn't know about the guy, what the story was. So I was going purely based on a scene that they were giving me, and they were giving me direction to go, look, why don't you try it a little bit more this way? Here's a little bit background. Like, so they were educating me about the character as we were going.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's hard to play like an iconic character if you've only looking at a scene and you've never read the stuff or seen anything on him.
So,
we just didn't have him in Romania.
I believe in the comic book, your character Bucky eventually becomes the new Captain America. Are you hoping that, like, that sounds like a good narrative to me? We should go in that direction.
I mean, look, of course, I would certainly jump on and go for it if that was the decision that was made, which is certainly not my decision.
Right.
I mean, I've enjoyed every aspect of the character so far that's been decided for him, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I think also it would be a very different take on that character. I mean, that's how it is in the comic books.
Of course,
that becomes a whole more darker, sort of more, like the motivations behind Bucky being Captain America and all that are very, very specific, and they're just different. But so, it's so much more complex than just asking someone like, do you want to do it? It's more like, hey, does this make sense from what we've seen so far, character-wise, where these people are right now in their lives in the MCU and going forward?
Because Chris Evans said he doesn't want to come back after the next one. I think 2019 after that, he said he's done.
But there was we're promoting Infinity War, which is on digital and Blu-ray August 14th.
But if he doesn't come back, is he really not going to come back, or is it just a contract negotiation?
There was an incident in Infinity War.
There was an incident.
I don't want to.
An Infinity War.
Yeah, that could lead. Well, you should see the film.
You should see the film.
Yeah.
To understand nothing. Yeah, listen, I mean...
Did I just blow something by saying that? It's
No. I mean,
so.
that's public.
Okay,
that's public
gotcha.
information.
No, I mean, but, at the same time, what you just said really doesn't mean a whole lot.
Then you can say that after anything I've ever said.
No, I wouldn't say that. But
Yeah, I guess
I could say I'm done doing this play. Does it mean that I'm never going to be in a play again?
Well, that's
no.
what I'm saying. Maybe it's a contract thing, and maybe he just wants them
like,
to think
you
about
never
it.
know. I mean,
And I guess it goes back to that question about, like, oh, there's a 9-picture deal here, and you're like, yeah, it says that on a piece of paper, but it's still, we're going to see what happens. Now, I've always wondered about the Marvel Universe, because you've been in a couple of the end credit scenes. When you just pop up in the end credit scene, does that count as like, okay, that's another movie I was in?
Honestly, that's a good question.
Do you count it? Do you count it for yourself as like, yeah, that counts as me being in that movie?
I don't know if I've thought about it enough, to be honest, to think that. I think that would be a cameo. I don't know. I mean, I would say that would be a cameo. I don't know. I mean, one of the after I was in 2.
Right.
No, I was in 3. One of the after credit scenes was actually a scene from another upcoming movie. So,
Right, so does that count as that movie or the other movie or both movies? Or
these are things that I don't really waste time thinking about.
Well, do you tell people?
Really know.
Do you tell people? Yeah, I was in that movie. Like, if there's a movie and you're only in the end credit, will you tell people like, yeah, I was in that movie?
No, I can't quite own it like it's my movie. I can't, I mean, I think, like my mom went to see Black Panther and she came back and called me and was like, I thought you were in the film. And I said, Mom,
oh no,
you have to wait until the end. And she
why
was
wait
like,
until the end?
She's like, no, I left. And so yeah,
a lot of people don't think to sit through the credits.
No,
I think now they
but
do.
Marvel,
Now they
it's
might,
like it's a given. Every Marvel movie you're supposed to sit through the credits.
Was the
There's always
motive
something.
to do that just that people got tired of working on a film and no one sits through the credits, and they're like, just do something at the end to get people to sit through the credits?
I don't know, but I think it's kind of great in a way because you have like these little mini desserts. Like after the whole thing, you're going back to. I mean,
I think part of it is my theory, and maybe
Yeah.
more in the beginning than now. I think originally the idea was that there would be people that would go back to see it a second time because their friends would be like, "Did you see the end credit scene?" And you're like, "What? What? There's a scene after the credits." And the real hardcore fans, if they walked out, would absolutely, because I knew people that would go back and see the movie a second time
because of that.
because they wanted to see the end credit scene.
Yeah. Well, I think, listen, it's also another great way of just putting in more material,
Yeah, I think it's
besides
cool.
2.5 hours.
Yeah, because it's like, there's a little more, so stick around. Although 2.5, it's amazing watching these things because 2.5 hours, like, it's originally, if you said 2.5 hours superhero movie, you'd be like, what the hell? But they fly by.
But that was, well, this one in particular, I thought, I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know how they're going to do it. I really don't, because there's just so many people and there's so many things going on at the same time. But you're watching it and there's, and there's so much happening. It's almost like every scene has its own impact in its own way. And then by the end, you're actually, you've forgotten that you've been there for a minute.
Jim Norton is also a comic book movie actor. I don't know if you know that about Jim.
It's not important. I was in the original Spider-Man, but
it was a pretty significant part.
On, but like I think there's some credit that needs to be given to those movies. I really do. Like, and Tobey Maguire, because you got to remember, like, that sort of kind of wasn't that the first sort of? That was before the Batmans, right? The Nolans.
The Nolans. Yeah, I think the Michael Keaton ones were way before.
Oh, the Michael Keaton, right? But
I feel like
that was a different.
Yeah, the Joel Schumacher, like the end of that series of Batman movies, kind of killed superhero movies for a little while.
Yeah,
and then I kind of, in my mind's eye, the Spider-Man movies brought back.
They did
superhero.
That
movies.
was. I always remember that. Like when you, and now I feel like I even remember because. You did when I walked in. I was like, I know I've seen you before. But
probably not in that, but yeah, you've probably seen me other.
Well, what did you do in?
I've seen you. I know I've seen you.
Yeah,
many times.
Maybe if you do the line.
No, I can't. I can't. My work is my work.
Oh my God, that's great.
No, you're right.
It has to live.
It's my work.
You're right.
It has to live.
You're right.
Do you do theater?
Yes. Yeah. No, I have. I've done it twice. I did it. 2007 and 2013.
I was just looking at Orlando Bloom had a thing where I saw that. He was yelling at a woman for her iPad. I think someone said she was just using it as a fan. But it's amazing how many people
That's
are.
terrible.
It is an awful fan, but there was someone behind her who took a photo, so it looked like she was on her iPad, but she was just using it.
Listen, attention deficit. Is happening. I mean, disorder, that's obviously what it is. But like, I mean, it's just, I think people are having a hard time. Like, it's hard for people to go and sit there for 2 hours without looking at their phones. And that's in itself like terrifying. But I feel that, look, if you're, if I was him, I get it. I mean, don't break character, maybe stay in the thing.
But have the character yell at the person in the
why
audience.
not?
Yeah, I like
keep
that.
Keep it in the world. But you have to. I believe there was one time where, don't you remember you hearing about when Hugh Jackman and Daniel Craig did this two-hander? And it was like about two cops or whatever. And they stopped. And somebody's phone was going off, and I think Hugh Jackman, in character, was like, we're going to sit here, and we're going to wait until that phone gets answered, and then we're going to continue, And it's like...
But in character.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Full character.
That's embarrassing for the person, but it's like, turn your phone off, asshole. They tell you before it starts.
And it keeps you interested in a play if they're in character. Like, you don't have to leave.
Well, I mean, I think that's the fun thing about theater sometimes, that you're not always safe, as an audience member. I mean, you're that close, like anything can kind of sort of happen.
Yeah.
And it should feel like that. You're in there.
Yeah, Stanley Kowalski just told me to turn off my iPhone.
Are you method at all? Like when you fall into Jeff Gillooly, do you stay?
Yes. Do you extend your genitals?
God. Yeah. Dear God.
Do you stay Gillooly?
No, man. I mean, listen. I think you everything is. It's always different. I'm always one of those people that I just sort of feel like whatever works for you, like just as long as it gets you to be able to show up to work and be on time and do your job as truthfully as you can. I don't discriminate,
Right.
and there's never really like a textbook for it. I mean, there's movies sometimes where it's just, like if there is a hard scene to do, like maybe it's not that great to talk to everybody on set that day. Maybe it's a little bit easier to sort of keep to yourself and, but there's other times where you want to be talking to people because you want to kind of like keep yourself, actually that is saving your energy in a way,
Right.
and so it just varies, I think.
Yeah.